What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best builds in last Epoch Season 2. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup, then I will explain what skills and upgrades should you focus on, then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for the endgame. And then finally we will go over the passive tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what idols and blessings should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. This is a powerful mage that brings the freeze and melts enemies in seconds. By harnessing the chilling power of the ice and dual wielding swords, the Shatter strike will obliterate the enemy packs and shred the bosses in no time. To fuel the onslaught, we will use Mana Strike to rapidly regenerate mana and ensure that you can keep spamming the Shatter strike without slowing down. Then also we will utilize the enhanced weapon to amp up our damage potential with strong offensive buffs. Also, the teleport will give us a swift responsive movement across the battlefield. However, when things get dicey, the Flame Ward is your key offensive cooldown to use it against big hits. The best part about this build is that no unique items are required for it to work. Although, if you want to maximize your DPS, then get gear like the Kestrel, the Bone Clamor Barbute, Siphon of the Anguish, Shatter Chains, and the Nihils. And all in all, the spellblade build will deliver solid clear speed and devastating single target damage. While it does need some investment to become tanky, if you're chasing a high DPS melee powerhouse, then this build is absolutely worth trying. So let's start off with our skills, and we are going to be using the Shatter Strike, which is our primary damage dealing skill. We've chosen nodes like the Whiteout, which makes each one of our casts hit 3 times. That obviously will dramatically boost our output. Then second, we got the Mana Strike, which is your go-to tool for restoring mana. To maximize its efficiency, we will invest into nodes like the Arcanist Blade, the Critical Mana, Bountiful Victory, and the Mana Drain. Then next we're using the Teleport, which serves as your primary mobility skill. With nodes like the Crystalline Passage, Resonant Plasma, and the Time Dilation, each passive will not only move you swiftly but also grant you a temporary boost to cold resistance and flat armor. Then next we got the Flame Ward, which is your core defensive ability, by offering impressive damage reduction that makes you exceptionally durable, well, at least while it's active. And then finally we're using the active enhanced weapon, which gives us a huge damage boost while it's active. It grants percentage increased melee attack speed through celerity and adds flat melee cold damage via the Frost brand. Next up we got the passive tree, and this is how it should look like in the mage category. We mainly went with nodes that gives us bunch of health and mana, more ward retention, increased cast speed, and fire and lightning resistance as well as intelligence. Then next we got our sorcerer category, and we get this one just for the node that gives us more mana and ward per second. Then next we also want to go with the rune master category, again just for this one that gives us more health and less damage taken from ignited or the chilled enemies. And then finally we're also heavily investing into the spellblade category, with all of these points allocated like this. So we want to go big on increased fire, cold and lightning damage, more intelligence and ward gained. Then also we need dexterity, increased melee attack speed, more melee cold damage and cast speed. Next we have our equipment, and for the head on the helmet we're using the Bone Clamor Barbute with armor, dexterity, reduced bonus damage taken from the crits, as well as intelligence and necrotic resistance. Then for amulet we got the Nihils with increased health, mana and movement speed, as well as critical strike multiplier, more levels to all skills, as well as mana regen and more to all resistances. Then for weapon, we're going with the dual wielding scissors of the Atropos. These swords are in both hands and gives us melee attack damage, attack speed, chance to apply slow, and chance to apply shred. This weapon provides huge damage and you can farm it from the Lost Wood Folly of the Waven Echoes. Then for chest armor, we got the Kestrel with armor, dexterity, more levels to Shatter Strike, increased cold damage, and more to health. This item has bunch of great stats that allow us to get the haste buffs when our nodes like the Teleport and Comet Crush are fully maxed. Then for our first ring, we got the Siphon of Anguish with more to all elemental resistances, more intelligence and dexterity, as well as increased movement speed and increased leech rate. Then for the belt we're using the Shatter Chains with armor, more potion slots, increased health, increased armor, and more damage. Because of the Shatter Chains and the Siphon of Anguish buff, we will boost our DPS significantly, thanks to their Doom synergy. Then for the second ring, we got the Red Rings of Altaria with increased movement speed, more to all attributes and resistances, as well as health, mana and dodge rating. Then for gloves, we got the Plated Gauntlets with armor, increased melee attack speed, more dexterity, health, and even more reduced bonus damage taken from crits. Then for boots, we got the foot of the mountain with armor, increased movement speed, more endurance, and more to all attributes. This is for sure the best boost for defenses, as we're mainly focused on being a super strong melee mage, so getting great armor and endurance is very important. And then lastly for relic, we're using the Diotan's Bloody Nim, with a ward per second, more dexterity, levels to shatter strike, and increased mana regen. So overall, this is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and modifiers to look for. But no matter what you have, try to build around increasing as much defenses as possible, because we are going to be in melee range, and unlike other mage builds, we will need a lot more HP. And now finally we've come to the gameplay, and I will show you two different rotations, so one for general AoV farming and the other one for single target slash against bosses. And by the way, as most of the skills are automatic, so these rotations are extremely easy. So first up we got our AoV rotation, and for this one we want to start our fights by casting the teleport to bolster our defenses. Then second, set the enhanced weapon to autocast on cooldown for consistent damage boost. Then next, use the Shatter strike as your main attack, and keep it swinging until the enemy drops or you're out of mana. Then when your mana runs low, then hit them with the mana strike to keep it topped up and back up. Next up, activate the flame ward permanently when you sense incoming damage. And lastly, keep your teleport buffs active by recasting it before they run out. And then second of all, we got bossing, which to be honest already covered a little bit in the first rotation. But to basically summarize it, then this time we want to start fights by keeping your defensive buffs up at all the time to make a full use of them. Then spend your mana aggressively to stack the bleeds on yourself as fast as possible. Next, use the flame ward as your lifeline, so use it to block heavy incoming damage, especially during big boss attacks. And then of course when using Shatter strike, aim carefully and position yourself smartly, so both the left and the right swings would land on the boss for double the damage output. So, are you ready to become a walking storm? Because this is one of the most electrifying setups in the game, called the Lightning Swarmblade Druid. This build is an absolute beast, which transforms you into a deadly swarm of the blades that rips through the enemies with insane melee speed. It's fast, it's flashy, and it got a high voltage chaotic gameplay. And here's the twist, even though our gameplay revolves around the melee combat, it actually also scales with the lightning spell damage. So we are going to be not only slicing and dicing, but also throwing out magical spells every few seconds. And my most favorite thing about it is that no unique items are required for it to work. But if you got gear like the Stormcard Testament, Kulnivar's Claim or the Aurora's Time Glass, then this build goes from strong to absolutely busted. And overall we've got high dodge, near permanent stunts and solid tankiness to keep you alive while you shred. This build is perfect for the endgame, and it is insanely fun to play. So let's start off with our skills, and we are going to be using the Swarmblade, which is the core of our setup. This skill will turn us into a rapid striking whirlwind of destruction by triggering multiple tornadoes through the Wind Fury strikes. Then second we got Tornado, which is another core damage dealer in this setup, but with a twist. Instead of scaling its usual damage multipliers, the Tornado will shine by triggering the Storm Bolts through the Charged Storm node. Then next we're using the Maelstrom. The more you have it, the more powerful and versatile you will become. Passives like the Wind's Whip and Divine Fury will kick things off by granting Frenzy and the Haste, giving you attack speed and urgency. Then next we got the Armblade Slash, which is a fast and spammable strike that taps into the Serpent Strike tree for added synergy. To keep you evasive, Slither and the Shroud of Winter nodes will work together by stacking a massive amount of dodge rating. And then finally, we're using the Gathering Storm, which is crucial for boosting your Storm Bolt damage and giving you that extra punch when it matters the most. Next up we got the passive tree, and this is how it should look like in the Primalist category. We mainly went with nodes that gives us bunch of attunement, lightning and cold resistance, increased health, increased spell, cold, lightning and physical damage. Then next we got our shaman category, and we aim for nodes with more attunement, increased attack speed, increased lightning damage, and more to shared spell lightning damage. Then next we also want to go into the Beastmaster category, and this time just for this one node that gives us more strength. And then finally we're also heavily investing into the druid category, with all these points allocated like this. So we want to go big on increased endurance, armor, increased damage, more to strength and attunement, increased attack speed, increased crit chance and more to health. Next we have our equipment, and for the head on the helmet we're using the Seed of the Yggdrasil with armor, critical strike multiplier while transformed, more mana and health. This helmet is good because of its high rage sustain, as damage dealt to mana before health will work also with rage. Then for amulet we go the Aurora's Time Glass with health, critical strike multiplier, endurance and increased attack and cast speed. This is for sure one of the best amulets for building a strong defense. Then for weapon we're using the Kulnivar's Claim with a melee and spell damage, increased attack speed, increased lightning spell damage and more mana regen. We went with this one because it helps us to cap critical strike chance, as mana converting to ward when full does not affect rage. Then for the chest we got the Mantle of the Pale Ox with armor, more levels of tornado, increased spell damage while transformed, and increased strength and movement speed. Then also for the offhand we got the one-handed axe, but for some reason this website would not allow me to add it. So just so you would know, we're using the Tempest Maw of the Acid one-handed axe with increased melee attack speed, critical strike multiplier, and a chance to shred armor on a hit. We went with this one because of the Tempest weapon passive. Then for a ring we got the Phantom Grip with increased critical strike chance, increased spell damage and more attunement. This will significantly boost our critical strike chance and increased crit chance. The mana will scale with extended bolts and give us more levels to the Swarmblade form. Then for the belt we got the Brewmaster Buckle with a health and increased health, as well as vitality and endurance. Then for our second ring we got the Ivory Ring with necrotic resistance, attunement, more void and poison resistances, as well as increased spell damage. Then for gloves we got the Rule of the Simon with armor, void resistance, increased melee attack speed and fire resistance. Because of these gloves we are going to be able to cast extra tornadoes, which will trigger automatically. Then for boots we got the Transient Wrist with armor, increased movement speed, and physical, poison and necrotic resistances. And lastly for relic we got the Stormcarved Testament with physical resistance, mana, more to spell lightning damage and lightning resistance. So overall this is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and modifiers to look for. But no matter what you have, try to build around increasing attunement and mana, as our storm bolts will significantly scale from them. And now finally we've come to the gameplay, and this build is very simple, so I will summarize both AoE and single target rotations in one package. At the start of our fights we are going to shift into the Swarmblade form and get ready to unleash chaos. So use dive on cooldown to stack up as many maelstroms as possible by maximizing the power of the buffs they provide. Then go on the offensive with the Armblade Slash by triggering a flurry of tornadoes that stick to you and tear through the enemies in a whirlwind of destruction. And then when it's time for boss fights, then focus on keeping all of your defensive buffs active for maximum survivability. And don't forget to use the dive or evade to dodge those deadly telegraph boss attacks, because staying mobile and unpredictable is the key to staying alive. This is a powerful melee bruiser whose main playstyle is to call down the sacred fire through the Judgement skill by creating consecrated grounds that scorches enemies where they stand. This build focuses on spamming skills by dealing fire spell damage over time through the consecrated ground, while also generating mana by using vengeance. Stacking multiple stacks of the concentrated ground will provide tremendous healing, which makes you incredibly hard to kill. Holy Aura and the Symbols of Hope will offer a passive bonuses, while Healing Hands not only restores our health and generates ward, but also doubles up as our movement skill. And one of my favorite things about it is that no unique items are needed to make this build work, but it can really shine with the right gear. So I recommend to use items like the Chance Scriber Graver with the Wing Guard, Contents of the Mayesa, Immolator's Oblivion, Twisted Heart of the Inkeros, and Orion's Eye. All of this can take the build to the next level by combining serious DPS with exceptional survivability. But as I said, if you don't want to, then you can easily stick with the default gear. So let's start off with our skills, and we are going to be using Judgement, which is our main spammable skill, which damages enemies and provides a lot of healing. Then second we get the Vengeance, which is our main mana generator, thanks to passives like the Time and Fate that gives us mana gained when we use Vengeance and hit enemies. Then next we're using the Holy Aura, which is a strong support ability that provides powerful buffs. With our nodes, we will mainly try to build even more defenses and to boost our healing effectiveness. Then next we get the Symbols of Hope that provides even more buffs, and this time it will get activated in the background. And then finally we're using the Healing Hands, which is triggered from the Vengeance and the Judgement, so we use nodes for additional healing, more ward and damage reduction. Next up we got the passive tree, and this is how it should look like in the Sentinel category. We mainly went with nodes that gives us bunch of defenses like the armor, fire and void resistance, block effectiveness, more health and attributes like strength and vitality. Then next we go into the Forge Guard category just to get this one node, which gives us a lot of strength, massive increase to attack speed, and more general damage with melee weapons. Then also we go with the Void Knight just to get this one node, that as same as in the previous one, not only gives us volatile reversal, but also more health, void and physical resistance. And then finally, we're also heavily investing into the paladin category, with all of these points allocated like this. So we want to go big on increased all types of resistances, more attunement, block effectiveness, more health, increased healing effectiveness, increased physical damage and movement speed. Next we have our equipment, and for the head we are using the Leon 9 Great Helm with armor, strength and more health. Then for amulet we got the Orion Eye with less damage over time taken, then increased damage over time dealt and more mana. We take this to boost our defenses to its maximum potential. Next we got the Transcriber Graver with the melee damage, increased melee attack speed and spell damage. And with tier 7 melee attack speed modifiers will boost its DPS massively. Then next get the Champion Regalia with armor, strength and more health. Then for shield get the Continents of Mayeza with the block chance and block effectiveness. Then for ring we are using the Flames of the Midnight with the Ward Decay, increased healing and increased elemental damage over time. We went with this ring to get 20% movement speed, while also getting additional fire penetration. Then for belt we got the Immolator's Oblation that gives us potion slots, health and even more increased health. Then for our second ring we got the Sun Wrath with the fire resistance, increased healing effectiveness and increased elemental damage over time. We mainly use it for increased fire damage. Next we got the Wind Guards with armor, endurance and increased melee attack speed. These ones are huge for attack speed and haste, and we want to combine them with the advent of the Erased Boots that will give us massive damage reductions. However, if you want more speed, then you can go also with different unique boots as well. Then next for the boots we went with the advent of the Erased with armor, increased movement speed and health. And lastly for relic we got the Twisted Heart of the Kairos with increased health, more levels of judgment and even more strength. This mainly will give us the +5 levels to judgment, which is a massive upgrade, especially when we are using it with tier 7. So overall this is the best case scenario setup, which should be more for an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. But no matter what you have, try to build around the mana gained when you use Vengeance and hit at least one enemy. And then for the rest, build on defenses and damage reduction, as we are going to be doing massive damage already. And now finally we've come to the gameplay, and I will show you two different rotations. So one for general AoV and one for single target slash against bosses. So first off we got our AoV farming, and for this one we want to start our fights by unleashing the Judgement to squirt our enemies in the Sacred Flames, while benefiting from the massive healing through the multiple stacks of the Consecrated Ground effects. Then next to sustain your mana keep on activating the Vengeance Strikes. Then for mobility rely on Healing Hands or a non-specialized Shield Rush to move around the battlefield super fast. And also don't forget to trigger the Holy Aura, as it provides powerful buffs and bonus damage. But overall, as you can tell, this build is very simple and spammy. So the core of it is just to spam the Judgement and see enemies die in seconds. And then second of all, we got the bossing, which to be honest I already covered a little bit in the first rotation. But to basically summarize it, then this time we want to start fights by maintaining all of our buffs and make sure that they stay up all the time. Then next, don't forget to keep saving the Healing Hands for clutch moments as a panic button. And lastly, if the boss is out of your reach and you need healing, then cast the Judgement, as the Consecrated Ground will restore your health for free.